Hey, welcome to Too Many Gadgets. So today we are talking about this. This is the Xiaomi FIMI X8 SE 2020 edition of their 4K drone. Try saying that 10 times fast. Drones are fun, and this is really a fun drone and a good drone also. And like anything else with Xiaomi, it's affordable. I've had drones for about 10 years. I'm only an amateur at best with drones, but I've used them for 10 years. I've started out with the cheap indoors drone that you can find, many places, and generally advice for me is to stay away from those types of drones. 5 years ago, I bought a more expensive DJI Spark that I still have. And I really like that drone, had traveled a lot with it. That's something that I think is key for drones, that you should be able to travel with them. Recently I had the opportunity to try out the Xiaomi FIMI X8 SE 2020 edition, which is a 4K drone that can fly much higher and much further away, and again with a 4K image quality. So of course I grabbed that opportunity and have tested this drone for a couple of months now. Usually I would talk about specifications and stuff like that first, but let's just get it in the area and let me show you some images of how it will look when you fly a drone like this. Then we can talk about the other stuff later. So while I do the unboxing, let me talk about the specifications. You get 4K HDR in up to 30 FPS. If you lower your resolution down to 1080p, you can go up to 100 frames per second. And for 720p, you can go up to 200 frames per second with a max bitrate of 100. Still images are recorded in a quality of up to 12 megapixels. All of this is recorded on a small micro SD card, which needs to be of U3 or higher quality to be able to record the 4K material. When we're talking about the battery, you get a 4500 milliamp battery, which should give you flight time. Specifications wise, it says 33 minutes, and I can confirm that you do get about half an hour worth of flight time. You get extra propellers should you run into trouble, so no concern in regards to that. The gimbal is a 3-axis gimbal, which works out really well, and there is an option to sort of configure it should you run into problems. It uses a foldable design, so it's fairly compact, and this is something that we've also seen on the DJI drones for a while, the larger ones. And again, this is a proven technology. In terms of range, specification says up to 8 kilometers and 500 meters in terms of height. I can confirm the height part. I have not been able to go that far away of 8 kilometers. So the joystick, like I'm showing here, can actually be mounted and removed and then stored in a small place inside the controller, which is super handy. You get plugs both for Android and iOS phones, so depending on what you have, you should be good. When mounting the propellers, make note that 2 of the arms have a small line on it, which sort of also aligns with the propellers, where 2 of them also have this line and 2 of them have not. So you need to sort of use the propellers with the line on the arm that also has the line, and then you just press slightly down and then twist it a little bit, and then it sits in place like this. And then you just repeat that process for the other 3. And again, then just decide which phone you have and what you need to, which plug you need to use. Okay, so I've shown you how it flies, at least a little bit. We'll cut back to that more later. And also how the specifications are for this drone. Let's just talk about how you set it up if you are new to drones. So we need to download the app, and inside the case there's actually a QR code that will lead you directly to the App Store. You need to create an account, and then just define in which region you are in. With that out of the way, we can start sort of getting on with this. Remember to provide access to your photo library. And then we need to do the usual updates, which takes about, it actually took me about 20 minutes or so, I think, because you both need to update the drone and the controller. Then just do a quick test run. Don't take it too far away, just to confirm that everything is working fine with the gimbal and the controller. So I just took it out in my backyard, and just to confirm that the main principles are working. When we're talking about drones, there are really 4 categories we should talk about. We should talk about the drone, we should talk about the camera on the drone, we should talk about the remote control, and the app that you use to configure and see the recordings from the drone. So starting out with the drone, it's super easy to set up, which is key for me, because again, since I always travel with the drone when I'm abroad or just on a road trip, you need to quickly be able to set it up. And this again uses a collapsible design, so you sort of extend the wings and then again fold them back once you're done. This is super easy to do, and really key for me that it doesn't take long to prepare it when you want to fly, because then again, if it's too big of a hassle, then you won't use it as much. And this works out super easy. The other thing about drones is that it needs to be easy to fly, and especially that it can sort of steady itself if you just let go of the controls. Cheap drones typically have the problem that they don't hover that well. They will not sort of stay in place. So you always need to course correct to keep them in place, which is super stressful and something that you should stay away from. This drone is very good at just staying stable, so it's easy for new beginners to just fly it and concentrate on filming, which is really what drones are about, filming beautiful places that you visit, and not, concentrating on not crashing the drone. This is an easy drone to fly, so new beginners will definitely feel comfortable, and more advanced users can play around with the more advanced settings and also take it up to the full speed that the drone can actually do. So let's talk a little about how far away you can fly this drone in reality. When I talked about the specification, I mentioned that the specification says up to 8 kilometers away, which is something that I have not been able to reproduce. When I've flown it in a fairly open terrain, I have been able to fly it a little over 1 kilometer away, and then it lost signal and started the automated return to home function. Again, which is a great functionality to have, and pretty much you find that on every drone nowadays, that if it loses its signal, it'll just fly back to where it started. So you should be good there. So it may be, depending on, again, the terrain and the height, that you can get it to go further than my attempts. But I think, a kilometer should be sufficient for most, because if you want to fly, 3 kilometers away with a drone, why would you do that? That's really far away from where you are. And should you lose it, you have 0 chance of ever finding it again. So for me, 1 kilometer is well above what I need. In terms of height, you can get it up to 500 meters, and I have been able to reproduce that part, so I can sort of definitely check off that box. Battery life is for me one of the key things about this drone compared to the DJI Spark that I currently have. With the DJI, I have like between 10-12 minutes maximum, And with this FIMI X8 SE 2020, again, long name, I get about half an hour, which is super great. Because then you can really just focus on getting all the recordings that you want, and half an hour should be well enough for what you wouldn't typically need when you are flying around. So this is really, you know, a big advantage that you don't need to buy. You can buy extra batteries. They are just maybe, I think they will be like $80–90, something like that. But for me, I would probably not even buy an extra one, because with my current old drone, I have an extra battery, but that is to keep me around 30 minutes of flight time. But with this, I get that with one battery, so I wouldn't really see the need for buying an additional one, unless I would, you know, need to travel abroad and not be able to charge it typically. But again, yeah, really good battery life. You get, I think it's 4,500 milliamp battery that's included in the onboard battery. Just another note, the box that the drone comes in actually serves well as a travel case, because it's kind of sturdy. So I've just had it, the drone and the remote controller packed in here, and then put the case in my backpack, and then took it on a bike, and that worked out well. Also, because a good sturdy case is good to have like as a takeoff spot, where if you are using it on a place perhaps with sand or wet grass or something like that, where you don't want the drone to touch that, so that you know, the case actually works well. You can buy, you know, specific bags for drones, but the case that the drone comes in actually serves quite well as a travel kit. Now let's talk about the remote control. The really great thing about this compared to some of the DJI remote controls is that this is using an extendable design, so you can really fit pretty much every phone. You can fit every phone in this, and even small tablets. This is also rated for the iPad mini. You get and another nice feature is that the two joysticks can actually be taken off, and then you just, if I do it correctly, just a second here, let me just see, there it was. You can easily screw them on and then take them back off and put it into the little storage compartment here, so they don't get damaged during transport, which is again a nice feature. Then you have again a power button, sort of a small joystick that you can also use to see the map and different other functions while flying. You have these two sitting on your thumbs here, sort of index fingers, to control the camera, and then you have two programmable buttons here on the back. And the orange button here is a return to home feature. Should you feel that you sort of lost control over the drone and don't know where it is, you can just flip that, and then it will come back to where it took off. So for a controller standpoint, you know, you get everything you pretty much need from my perspective. It's a really good controller. It feels nice and sturdy. And again, I like the part that you can take off the two joysticks to make sure they don't get damaged during during transport. Okay, so let's focus then on the camera on the drone. So like I mentioned in the specifications, this is rated of up to 4K with 30 FPS in up to 100 megabits per second in image quality. It's a 3-axis gimbal. So you are pretty much set on the specification side. I think also the recordings that I'm showing should sort of, show that this is a good camera. Still images can be up to 12 megapixels. The only thing I will say, and you should be able to tell that also for some of my recordings, is that it sort of sometimes has a tendency to tilt a little bit to the left or to the right. And I think that's the gimbal that's not always 100% on par. And I've seen that in some of the other reviews that I've found on YouTube for this drone. So I think it's fair to say that this is one of the places where you don't get as high quality as some of the high-end drones on the market. But again, still a good gimbal and good value. But again, this is one of the few areas where it's not 100%, I would say, compared to what you can get if you spend more money than what you buy this drone for. Flying this drone in strong wind is actually something that I've tested out, and it does fairly well in those situations. I've tested it compared to my DJI Spark, which is a fairly smaller and lighter drone. And the DJI Spark was perhaps a little bit more stable in strong winds, but both, were fine. But yeah, again, you could see a small difference, and this could be also due to the fact that, again, this has a collapsible design, which makes the frame a little less sturdy than the DJI Spark, which is like a fixed frame, and again, smaller drone. But you can fly this in fairly strong winds, and it'll do just fine. Of course, you lose some of the speed when you are flying upwind, but if you're flying downwind, you can really pick up speed quite fast. Last but not least, let's talk about the app, which I think is very familiar for those of you who have, like me, used DJI drones. Easy to learn, and then you have a lot of more advanced functions you can play around with if you feel you want to use the full sort of width of the app. But again, very easy to get started with, and again, fairly familiar to how DJI app works. I've tested this drone for like 2 or 3 months, it may be now, and it's really been a good travel companion for me. And it's very evident, what you get buying a drone like this. And let's just talk again about price. It's $420, I think, on AliExpress, including shipping, which I think is a very attractive price when you're looking at what it is competing with. Which, for me, the most obvious competitor here would be the DJI Mavic Air 2, which on specifications are fairly similar. The DJI Mavic Air 2 will go a little bit higher in frames per second in 4K, but many players will actually not go above 30 FPS. So the 60 FPS I think you get with the 4K on the DJI is perhaps a little bit on the theoretic side on this until we get even better hardware to play 4K material. But it's definitely something I can recommend, and also because drones should be something that's affordable, easy to work with. You should always be able to buy spare parts. Don't ever buy a drone where you can't get spare parts, and this is why you should stay away from drones, in whatever your local... If you buy food, you should not be able to buy a drone there. Don't ever buy a drone where you can buy other stuff. Support your local online or whatever, but don't buy, unbranded drones where you can't buy replacement parts, because especially the propellers, you will break a propeller once in a while. It doesn't happen that often for me. I think I've broken one propeller in 3 years, but I did break one. And again, and I could easily replace the one I had, but if I bought a no-name drone, I might not have been able to do it, and then the whole drone is worthless. So again, buy something where you can get replacement part, you can get a new battery. A new battery for this will set you back about $80, which again is a fairly fair price for what it is. And I actually think most of you will not need an extra battery. So again, these typical fly mode packages you sometimes see, I think most of you will not need them, because 30 minutes of flight time should be fairly good for most of you guys. So again, you can always buy an extra should you need it. But so again, if you're considering fly mode package, I think unless you know that you want to fly like an hour or more without charging batteries, you should be good with the standard package, right? That is pretty much it, what I think I could come up with. For me, again, really good drone. I can see that the gimbal is not as strong, perhaps, as some of the DJI drones. But again, those are way more expensive. So for a budget flyer, I think this is a good deal and something that I can recommend. But let me hear what your thoughts are, and if you have experiences with this drone. So share it with the crowd, and see you guys in another video. Bye.